Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in to the Pantheon GT tournament preview, or the first of a few previews I think we might end up doing, Jay. So welcome into everyone on the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network side and the Pantheon Studios side as well. For those of you who do not know me, my name is ScottyD. I am the owner and director of the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network. And today we're going to be talking with Jay, who is the TO for the Pantheon GT, also the main creator behind the Pantheon Studios as well. Jay, how you doing?
Good, mate. For anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Jay. I am one of the highest ranked Tau players in the world at present, and that was the same for the end of ninth. I have a YouTube channel, which if you're watching my stream, it is infinitely less professional than Scotty has. I don't have overlays or anything else. I am as basic bitch as they come, but get by with what's sitting up here. But yeah, so really keen to talk to you, Scotty, as we're going to be having your guys streaming at my event, which I am very excited about, as getting more people to see competitive Warhammer is just amazing. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries at all. Definitely happy to do so. I'll actually be traveling up from Canberra myself to be there and cover it myself. So it's going to be awesome. I was at the venue last year for CruitCon, so it was absolutely awesome to be there. So I know the venue, I know how everything can be set up. It makes it so much easier when you're at the same venue multiple times.
Yeah. And the venue was one of the big things that when I was getting ready to set up this GT, I started thinking about where we could hold it in Sydney. And even though it is a very large and popular city, I don't feel like we're particularly spoiled for choice. It's usually like community centers or, you know, just random ramshackle places that you can fit that many tables into.
Yeah.
Whereas the RSL that we're going to has this tiered set of levels where, like, you're walking around. I could literally, when I was playing at a table, stand up, both arms out, swing around, and scream, "I've got so much room for activities." And the dude on the next table almost might not hear me, which is incredible. And then you've got the front bit where we actually had your stream up on a stage and everything. It looks so good. It looks so good.
100% agree. 100% agree. I love that venue. So it's awesome to be back there. But yeah, for those of you who are watching, we are doing this live on the ATWN's Twitch currently. It will be up on the ATWN's YouTube next week. And of course, with it being streamed on the Pantheon Studios YouTube, it's going to be straight away up on YouTube, accessible straight away, which is awesome. Want to shout out to everyone in both chats. I don't have Pantheon Studios chat up, unfortunately, but welcome in everyone on both sides. It's great to have you joining us. And so, yeah, so why don't we, for the benefit of both sides of our creating platforms, why don't you start us off, Jay? Give us a bit of background about yourself, how long you've been in the hobby, what armies that you play, where you normally play, and just so that each community can get to know each other a bit better.
Yeah, sure. So Tau is obviously my main faction, but I am a ninth baby. I have only been playing for a year and a half, I think. And when I say only playing for a year and a half, I mean that a year and a half ago, if you would have asked me what a D6 was, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. I went from literal nothing to the nerd that I am, learning everything. I managed to, my LGS, because I am down in the southwest of Sydney, there's a really great team down here, TNS. I got to rub shoulders with a couple of the really great tournament players that are in that team. And that really helped to sort of accelerate the process of getting into the competitive side of 40K and, you know, dispelling a little bit of the unknowns about walking into a tournament circuit and what to expect. Aside from Tau, which is main faction and the one that I hold the most ITC points on, I dabble in a little bit of Leagues of Votan after their release, which I managed to get together. And then, of course, they got nuked from orbit. And actually, the faction I started out on, you can kind of see him in the top right, is Grey Knights. Where there was a dude that was just, when I was first getting into it, selling an army for next to nothing. And I was just like, yeah, cool, I'll pick it up. But I mean, Tau were my first love since I was a kid. So, you know, the call got me. And turns out I really like shooting people from a very long way away. Just, you know, hashtag Tau things. Yeah, so I started on YouTube not too long ago. I think we've been going for less than a year,
Yep.
but doing very well. We have a really, really amazing community of just really, really passionate Tau players. It actually kind of took me back just how passionate the Tau community is.
Yeah.
But yeah, now we're starting to bridge out into other things and running tournaments, and yeah, so that's me. What about you, Scotty?
Cool. So yeah, ScottyD, I've actually been playing 40k since 5th edition, so back from 2008. So I've got 15 years under my belt of 40k.
Okay, so you started playing 40k the year before I joined the military.
Wow.
Which is like a long ass time ago now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I started out with Marines and Orcs. Tried Orcs for a little bit. Didn't really jive well with them. Still stuck on Marines.
Heresy. Orcs are the best faction in the game.
It's more that they just their play style. Like nothing against them, but the play style of them just really didn't jive with me. So I just stuck with Marines for the majority of up until probably 8th edition. Started to get into tournaments around late 6th, early 7th. Running events and such down here in Canberra as well. And then 8th kind of hit. I took a bit of a step back. Took a bit of a break. Other life stuff going on. Need to focus there and such as well. So came back kind of towards the back end of 8th. Early, just before 9th dropped. Kind of the year before 9th dropped. In that time, I'd picked up Deathwatch as well as Space Marines. So different Space Marines, but still Space Marines in a sense.
And in the current meta, there's a lot of people that are actively cringing right now, like, oh, of course you did.
But I don't meta chase with my Deathwatch. I keep it first spawn mostly. And then I also at the start of 9th, I was looking to pick up another army. I wanted to pick up something Xenos, and I like the look of Necrons, and I picked those guys up. And I've been playing them a lot at the start of 10th, and I've been really loving them. They've been great fun. So they've gotten some hits as we'll get into. We'll talk a bit about some of their points changes.
This data slate is spicy.
Yeah. But one other thing I want to hit on, I did play Tau for a little bit.
Oh!
Yeah, 7th edition.
Oh! Now, why did you stop? I have to ask, why did you stop?
Didn't have time to play the army.
Oh, okay. All right.
It was more of a, I've only got so much time on my hands to even play a game, and it was like even just trying to keep up with Marines was a bit tough at that point. So I was like, all right, cool. But I will say it did go to a good cause. I donated that army because I still held on for a while. Donated to the Exterminatus guys, and they actually raffled it off for charity.
Oh, that was your Tau army.
That was my old Tau army.
Oh, well, that's really good of you, man. That's really good of you. I know Exterminatus, they tend to do, like, all of their raffles and everything tend to go to, like, really good, like, I think the last one, correct me if I'm wrong, was, like, a men's mental health organization.
Yeah, it's always been that.
Yeah,
it's always been that for the past few years that I've been down there. Yeah, the majority of it was the stuff that I'd given Dom and the guys, and they'd done an amazing job painting it up. It looked awesome. I'm glad it went to a good home as well.
Yeah. You know, you missed an opportunity for, you know, like entertainment over truth, where you could be like, oh, I just got sick of everybody like spitting on me and all that sort of stuff. And okay, so I'm getting from somebody on mine, audio's a little bit low. I'm going to turn you up.
All good.
Just talk for me, Scotty.
Yeah, gotcha.
All right, all good? Chat, let me know if that's better. I'm turning Scotty up. He's a little more soft-spoken than I am. Unfortunately, I imagine you haven't had a lot of people in your life be like, my freaking ears.
I mean, I know how to control audio, so it's been, you know, I can plan things out nicely and make sure that everything's nice and leveled using filters, all that fun stuff.
Mate, no filters in real life. I'll have people be like, why are you yelling at me? And I'm like, oh man, sorry, I was chatting. So from my chat, Feud came in with a very, very spicy take. Votan potentially biggest winners of the update.
Yeah.
Which we can go through, because we will be going through the entire Balance Dataslate. And it'll be very nice, because I did a solo dolo Tau thing, but it's always good to look at stuff in context of everybody else.
Yes.
And I'm keen to see, because I do love my just little guys, just little bearded fellas hanging out. So I'm actually keen to see about that. But what is it? What is our flow, Scotty? Are we getting straight to the data slate, or is there other stuff that we've got to do? What are we chatting about here?
We are going to talk about the Pantheon GT first up. We're going to talk about
I love your style, mate. I love your style. That is a great, yeah.
So why don't you give us a bit of a run through behind the general format that you're going to have at the GT, the number of players, how many rounds, how many points, FAQs that are in use, kind of what terrain people should expect and such as well.
Yeah, so it is a 5-round tournament, 2,000 points. We are on the down under 40k circuit. We are on the ITC circuit. Unfortunately, we just missed out on the Oceanic Championship qualifiers, which was offered to us, but unfortunately it was just too close to when the actual event was going to play. So that'll be a next year thing. Even though I still do have a token for it, so I'm hoping there's just some mix up and people just get like a bunch of points, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So what we're going to be doing is basically the most competitive format that we can, which means that we're going to have the WTC FAQs in place, as well as the most recent data slate from GW. Now, there are some people that are a little adverse to the WTC. I don't especially understand that myself. As WTC, everything that I've seen, they tend to focus on things that are uninteractive, unbalanced, or rules interactions the community is not happy with, the GW hasn't really touched. One of the things that I pointed out for the Tau data slate was the WTC are the people that fixed our Tiger Shark, which had a 6-point something base, which meant it had to start in strat reserves, come onto the board, and then couldn't do anything for an entire turn. Which meant really you didn't want to take it. Like, why would you take something that big, that many points, which is a great platform, but then not do it? They fixed the towering stuff super quickly. They fixed the unchargeable through walls if you position like 1.1 inches away. I'm a really big fan of anybody, especially a world organization that runs the biggest competitive teams event.
Yeah.
People sort of stepping in and going, you know what, this is something that we can all get behind and make our game fairer and more competitive. And as an organization, I feel like they've done that well. Are there things that people can point to that they're not happy with? Sure, you're not gonna make everybody happy. But yeah. I've never played at a WTC event which has felt unfair, which is probably the biggest thing for me as an organizer. As people coming to my event, the biggest thing that I want is for people to walk away feeling like their time, their money, and their emotional investment was worth it. And they walk away, even if they didn't win the event, feeling good about them. So...
yeah, 100%. I can actually provide a little bit of background over the WTC hang-up
mate,
for you as well.
Hit me. Let's go.
Way back, we're talking like 6th, 7th edition, even 8th. The ITC themselves actually did an FAQ. And so you actually found, I was one of the people responsible behind the ITC becoming a big thing in Australia, running the first event for the ITC and the first South Pacific Champs and stuff.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was way back now. That was getting on 5 years back now. But ITC's grown massively.
Why are you such a boomer?
But what had happened was because Games Workshop were doing no FAQs at the time, right? The ITC stepped in, they did this massive 40-page FAQ. And and it was the same time where back then it was called the European Team Championship, or ETC.
Right,
before WTC was the thing, when they parted ways with the ETC. And so there was this kind of rivalry between you either looked at the ETC FAQ or the ITC FAQ, or you just didn't use FAQs at all and you made your own rulings. So it's kind of that hang up where some people would play one, others would play another. It's also very regional. So if you look, for example, down in Victoria and Queensland, they're very much more playing at the time, they were playing more the ETC style rules, particularly WA as well. Whereas New South Wales, it was more ITC, or depending on the event, because that's where the ITC really grew initially. And so that's kind of where that little bit of a hang-up comes in, particularly after the ITC FAQ stopped and Games Workshop actually really ramped up doing their FAQs through 8th and 9th. Of course, we're now starting to see that a bit more. Once again in 10th, but hopefully they continue to ramp that up, because there is that preference to actually pick the proper GW FAQs over external ones if they're available. So that could be where a little bit that hang up is as well.
And I have noticed, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I've also noticed some of the biggest pushback that I've seen to the WTC has actually come from players in the United States. And so it makes sense now that you're talking about, WTC starting as the ETC. let's face it, the United States and Europe don't exactly have the greatest sort of casual relationship among their populace. But yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense now why there would be so many people that would sort of push back against that. I had no idea about that history. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah, so it kind of, you know, now that we're moved into 10th, Games Workshop's fallen off a little bit with their FAQs. Because it's a new edition, it generally does happen, but the ITC FAQs no more. It means the WTC is kind of the one that's jumping in to fill that gap, and they did have to come in quite quickly to fill that gap because it was literally 6 weeks out from the WTC itself. So they had to come in, they had to figure out what all the issues were and hit them on the head so that players knew what was going on so they could build lists to actually run at the Teams event and the Warmaster GT.
And I feel like they did a really good job for the amount of time that they actually had to look at some of the interactions and come up with solutions. And to be fair, I actually really do think that it's a unison that kind of paves the way, because GW as an organization needs to move a little bit slower, because the WTC aren't the people that are selling models and whatever else from it. They are purely a tournament organization. And GW can kind of look at what they might implement and go, oh, okay, cool. They solved it this way. Is this the route we want to go down? Let's examine this. Let's do whatever. They can take their time with it. But the WTC helps protect the tournament circuit, which I don't hate the idea that there is a symbiotic relationship there that helps to keep the health of the game while GW does the pace that an organization that big has to do for their update rollouts. Because they put out a worse update and they are getting raked over the coals. They generally don't want to work too quickly because they've gotten it wrong in the past and it hasn't turned out well for them.
Yes, very much so.
But yeah.
So that's a little bit of context. So now we can jump into, with that context, I mean, 70 players, 2,000 points. I believe you still got some tickets available as well.
We are bordering on only really having like 9 tickets left.
Nice.
Hopefully the data slate helps accelerate that. I know, like we were chatting pre-stream, there's been a little bit of apathy among the community, which I 100% get. I was genuinely so worried about having my event run with Eldari doing the things that they were doing to the tournament event. Like, use some lube, guys. My God. But like this data slate, I'm really, really keen to talk about because it puts me in a situation where as a TO, I am more comfortable to run. And I'm really hoping that that also gets us to the point of being sold out, because anybody that's run an event knows that having all of that means that the experience you can give to your players is just so much more. Whereas if you don't, you kind of have to look at the things that unfortunately need to be cut in order to you know, hit the margins and not have people playing on a car park out back and instead of dice they're rolling stones and all.
Yep, 100% get that.
So, but there are 9 tickets left. I've also had people reach out about coming down as spectators, like new players that are keen on the tournament circuit. I really love that I've had people reaching out to me on that. There's no charge for people to come down and have a look around or have a chat to me or whatever else. So absolutely, if you're not sure about the tournament circuit, come down and say hi. It's at the Padstow RSL. I will chuck a link at you, Scotty, so that you know, people can sort of find it. But yeah, come down and say hi. Or buy a ticket. You know, even better, buy a ticket.
Yeah. And to also hit the note, it is the weekend after the October long weekend. So 7th and 8th of October as well is an important thing to note, because I know there's a few different events happening around that time. So it's important.
It is a stacked month of 40K.
Yes.
It is really great.
Because the OCC's qualifier event is the following weekend, which makes sense as to why you weren't able to, you know, fit in for that ranking timeline.
Yeah.
But we've already mentioned it. The Balance Dataslate, the points updates, and the Rules Commentary updates all dropped last night. So let's jump into a bit of discussion about that. We're going to start off with the Balance Dataslate itself. Then we're going to jump to the Rules Commentary. Then we're going to cover some of the points changes, some of the notable things that you know, I've noticed from the scene that have been quite important. And I'm sure anyone in the chat can throw out things that have been important changes as well that we might not hit also.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of chats, I'll do a quick catch-up. Loopy said hello. Hello, Loopy. Hello to all of Scotty's viewers that might be watching. Feud has been furiously typing. I feel like it's that meme of Elmo where he's like smashing on the keyboard and stuff. So yeah, Feud pointed out it's Battle in the Bush, Moab, then Pantheon, and then there's OCC after that.
Yep.
And there have even been people that have reached out to me and they've just been like, hey man, I just literally cannot do it. Like, I'd love to come to your event. I bought my ticket for this ages ago. And like, I 100% get it, but kind of exciting as well. Like, people are kind of getting spoiled for a little bit of choice for some really, really good 40k.
100%.
But yeah, oh no, Cooper's in the chat. Oh, and he can't make any of the GTs. Oh, that's fine, man. More ITC points for me. That's fine. Cooper and I always like yo-yo on the Tau rankings. Though at the moment he's had a lot more events on them, so he's smashing me currently. So I've got to catch up. But yeah, I am bringing up the data slate as well for myself, so that I can put that up on my screen. If you would like to be able to see our faces and this stuff at the same time, go to Scotty on Twitch. I don't have overlays. I'm just going to be putting this stuff up as we're talking. So he is the professional one. This is why, he's coming to stream my event, and I'm not just, holding a phone at the main players.
All right. Cool. So for the Balance Dataslate, the first change, page 28, Devastating Wounds. Now, this is something that the community has been crying out for a change on, something fierce.
Yes. I saw this and it was a sigh of relief, honestly. Like, Devastating Wounds is one of the only keywords that my main faction has, but I did not care, as we weren't banking on Devastating Wounds, but just this change is so healthy. Healthy for the game. Run us through it, Scotty.
All right. So the red text is what the change is. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon that has the Devastating Wounds keyword, if that attack scores a critical wound, no saving throw of any kind can be made against that attack, including vulnerable saves. Such attacks are only allocated to models after all other attacks made by the attacking unit have been allocated and resolved. So much like what mortal wounds have been previously in 9th edition, they are resolved at the final step. You don't do them first and then you resolve other damage, or you resolve them simultaneously. No, it is resolved last, which means you make all your saves and everything else. So it means that, you're not saying, oh, lose this many models from a unit, and then it's like, oh, cool, like I've got 20 dice that I need to make 5-up saves on for 3 guys that are left, and then it's like, cool, no, you make those 20 saves for the 5-ups for the full 10 guys, and then you lose the devastating from that.
Yep.
So, and Feud is also pointing out, technically not a mortal wound. So no mortal wound saves. Yes, it is just a critical wound that ignores saves. That is the big point there as well. So,
and I look at Custodies for that. In the highest sort of things, like we've seen Custodies get hit pretty hard in this data slate, but this one on top of that means that they have an army rule which doesn't just automatically save them from anybody's shenanigans. Which, there'll be a give and take, and we'll sort of wait until the dust settles to see where they sort of fit. But having that mean that, like, there are still psychic attacks, there are still other things that are going to put out mortal wounds. It's not like mortal wounds have been removed from the game. They're just not the main thing that you have to worry about. And it was actually something we were chatting about. The broadsides out of nowhere in Tau got a feel no pain against mortal wounds. I think it's a 4-up. And we were like, okay, thanks. And now we don't get to use that against all the devastating wounds and stuff. But I was saying on my stream last night, I actually don't care. I didn't know why we had it in the first place. And I would rather just have, okay, cool. From a single attack, I'm not going to lose a broadside and a half. I will just lose the one. That's cool. Absolutely happy with that.
The other thing to note as well, Black Templars are someone that do lose out because they do also have that detachment rule of that 4-up, feel no pain against mortal wounds.
They do. Yes, they do. Yeah.
So,
it's Black Templars.
Yep. The other thing as well is that it does say saves. Now, it depends on the wording of Feel No Pain. I believe Feel No Pain would still work against Devastating Wounds, but I'd have to look into it a bit further, so I'm not 100% certain on that one.
Yeah, so far as I know, if you have a Feel No Pain which isn't tied to a specific damage type, like Mortal Wounds, so like broadsides absolutely won't get it because the wording is Feel No Pain against Mortal Wounds. So you won't get it against that because they are no longer mortals. But if you just have a generic Feel No Pain, let's talk the Crypto Thralls from Necrons, they will still have their Feel No... Actually, I haven't looked at the Necron data slate. Hopefully, I don't know if they lost it. But as an example, if you have a generic Feel No Pain, you should still get it against this because it is a normal type of damage from an allocated attack that has hit and wounded.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We'll definitely dig into Necrons, being a Necron player myself.
and I will say this, because we're on the theme of this being about my tournament and everything else, when I'm going through this, in the lead up to the tournament, if anybody has any concerns or there's anything on the day, I will always do something based on evidence and fairness for both players. So we will be going through, I will be picking apart every single little interaction that this might go with. So any of the players that are coming to my GT, there will never be a point where somebody feels cheated or whatever else because, you know, I didn't, or one of my judges didn't have an understanding of, you know, the rules, interactions, or whatever else. So as we're talking in this stream, I'll throw out initial impressions, but that's because we haven't properly examined it, because we had it come out and then as Australians we slept, and now, you know, it's like first thing in the morning. So, you know, we'll get there, but there's more initial impressions. That is my take of a general feel no pains on that one.
Yeah. All right, cool. Next one, we've got stratagems from page 41, and this is modifying a stratagem CP cost. So anything that allows you to spend a CP or use a stratagem for free, or use it at 0 CP, or potentially use it again, things like that come under this section. So modifying a stratagem CP cost. Rules that modify stratagem CP cost when you target a particular unit can only do so for a stratagem that targets multiple units if every unit you target has the same ability to modify the CP of that stratagem. So the big call out here is Deathwatch. They have all the different ammunition types, so like Hellfire rounds, Dragonfire bolts. They will say you get to pick 2 units. If you use the free CP spend, you have to be able to pick with those multiple units. They have to have a character in them that allows you to get that CP for free to be able to target both of them with that stratagem.
Yep, and you know, to point out, none of this is saying that it kills the stratagem from targeting those people. You just have to pay for it. If you want to have it for free, you have to invest in the models that allow you to do it, which I actually think is really good. I also, brain goes to Necrons as well with their, you know, reanimations and that sort of stuff. I believe that's a multi-unit CP that they can spend. I may be talking my ass there, and I'll check that up. But I like the idea that, because there a lot of people that I was speaking to at the higher sort of echelons of competitive play, generally speaking, there was a massive disparity in the people that had CP alteration available to them. And generally speaking, having stuff like this wasn't healthy for the game. And I feel like it doesn't kill it, but it also means that if somebody decides to invest into it, they get more of a benefit than somebody that just goes, okay, cool, I've put in 90 points and therefore I get like 300 points worth of value across the course of the battle. Yeah.
100%. So then the next part of this is rules that modify CP cost. So this, we knew about the first one because Deathwatch was a problem, so they did mention that previously. The second part is what the new part of this is. Rules that modify CP cost of a stratagem but that do not specify the name of the stratagem can only be used to affect CP cost of battle tactic stratagems. This does not apply to Aircast Colossus, Striding Colossus, or Towering Wrath construct abilities.
Now, so I look at this one, and again, very, very healthy for the game. Because one of the biggest things that people are having a problem with, and I love it because it pushes my Fish of Fury up, Overwatch. This functionally kills, because there was an argument in competitive circles about whether Overwatch could be used more than once with things that allowed you to use a stratagem again. There was a very, very heavy opposition to this, which I fully understand. I actually didn't really have a horse in the race. I never did Overwatch more than once in a turn, because just how things. But this kills it, because you can actually see on the document, and I'll put this on my screen for my stream, Fire Overwatch is a strategic ploy. This means that unless you have a specific wording that says you may Overwatch more than once per turn, that argument is dead. It is just gone. And I love that. We need clarity in a game this complex, and I love that we have had it as part of this data set.
Yeah, 100%. Also, shout out to Feud in my chat. He threw up a Reddit thread that has actually got all of the stratagems that can now be affected by 0 CP abilities.
My man.
So you've got stuff like your command reroll and go to ground are your only core ones that you can do.
Okay.
What else? You've got, for Custodes, you've got the -1 damage strat. What other ones are important?
Which, to be fair, is very powerful for them.
Yes.
That is a great strat to be able to replicate.
Yep. All Marines, Armor of Contempt, so -1, reducing AP by 1.
Very powerful again, yes.
Let's have a look at what else. Demons, Demonic, Invulnerability, and the Realm of Chaos. So redeploy and re-rolling saving throws of 1.
Yep, Demons should be deleted from the game. Yep. I'm sorry, I'm salty from 9th as a Tau player going into Demon saves. I know my biases.
Yeah. Yeah. Dark Angels have actually got a lot under their belt that they can still pull out. Deathwatch,
Ooh.
a lot of theirs, it's just
Go
armor
the
contempt.
Dangels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deathwatch on the rough end of the stick because they've only got armor contempt outside of the core ones. So rip
Now,
them.
have you played any games of 10th? In terms of Deathwatch, I haven't really run into it in any of my
Not
games.
yet.
After their initial nerf to what was a broken interaction where they could like just pump out infinite mortal wounds, reminded me of the Kazakin in 9th before that got reined in to a max of per unit. I'm wondering if there's any Death Watchers that know if they needed this, because keeping up with like meta stats and everything else, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but it's for a point. I didn't think Death Watch was so dominant to the point that they needed an extra sort of run through like this, or I wonder if maybe it's a flow on effect of other things being nerfed and these guys just kind of being caught in the...
I think it's more that they're caught in the crossfire, but I also think it's a little bit of a, okay, let's just make sure it's okay-ish. So currently looking at stat check, I do have the meta dashboard up. It's not on screen because it's just a quick reference. Deathwatch are actually sitting at a 54% win rate before the Balance Dataslate. So they're actually doing quite well, but they're not blowing out like what GSC and Eldari have been doing as of late. So they're in line with Custodes, Thousand Suns. They're just ahead of Imperial Knights and Necrons.
Okay, so they are in kind of rarefied company then, being among those factions. Though interestingly, GW has expressed that their delta is 45 to 55 for a healthy win rate percentage. So they are sitting on the upper end of that, and I do feel like they probably will get taken down a bit. I mean, Feud just called out in my chat that Deathwatch went from one of the best Marines to one of the worst. Yeah. And I would be likely to agree with him, as he is very across a number of factions. Not agree because I have an opinion of my own, but just like, I'm happy to take an opinion of somebody that's generally got their finger on the pulse. So, yeah, okay. So, Deathwatch copped a little bit. Is there anybody else on the list that you've got? Because I need to get that link. That sounds super helpful for tournament play.
Looking at Dark Eldar passed through relatively unscathed.
I feel like they needed that. Drukhari weren't really...
Votan have got 3 out of their 6, which are free spend as well. Orcs have got 4 as well, which is really nice for them. Orcs. Necrons did get hit. Feud has pointed out in my chat as well. No double reanimate anymore.
No double reanimate. Let's go.
Yeah.
I actually at Steel City. You were streaming that event. I got to play Liam Hackett on his Necrons last round. Which one of the best games I've ever played in my life. He dragged me across the floor and belted me. But genuinely one of the best games of my life. Just watching such an intelligent player do everything that, like, the game was predetermined. It's like he consulted the prognosticators and he just knew what was going to happen before it happened. But seeing some of the Necron shenanigans, I was like, how are you able to do this every single goddamn turn? Yep.
The other ones that have been hit, now this might change, are Index Tyranids. We're not sure how the Codex Tyranids will actually interact with this change, considering the Codex drops tomorrow.
Yep. Is it actually that soon?
Yeah, Codex is out tomorrow.
Let's go Tyranids!
And I'm expecting that Space Marines will go up for pre-order next weekend for a following weekend release. Is my anticipation. That's a good cadence.
Yeah. That's a really good cadence.
Yeah. So Eldar have only got 2 as well, which is good. It's matchless agility and lightning fast reflexes, so -1 to hit and auto advance 6. Which
that's pretty good to have to be able to replicate. It's not the egregious stuff like Phantasm, and that got reined in being infantry only, which we can go through in the next part of the data slate that comes down. So yeah, that's really, really healthy. I like that.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, there is another example that I want to touch on. So the Caladius Assassin, when used to increase the cost of one of your opponent's stratagems by 1, this ability does not specifically name a stratagem, and so it can only be used to increase the CP of a battle tactic stratagem.
Yes.
So that's the other side of it, that you now can only modify battle tactic stratagem costs, not any stratagem costs. So in the reverse, you can't actually make the reanimation stratagem for Necrons cost 2 CP.
Which does hurt me. I would like them to be able to do that. Maybe we can get an FAQ that says you can change any Necron stratagem at any time, even if they haven't used it. That'd be fantastic. But I mean, yeah, that is really, really healthy for the game because, you know, stuff that I look at, like my Strike and Fade for Tau, if somebody makes that 3 CP, I never use it for the rest of the game. That's done. It's already expensive at 2 CP.
Yeah.
I like that. And I'm sure there are examples for other armies where plugging something like that in, as easy as it is to take for an Imperium army, that really is just like, I'm a big fan of that chain. That's really fun.
Yeah. The next part of this one, stratagems can be used more than once per phase / per turn. Rules that allow you to use a stratagem even if another unit has been targeted by that stratagem this turn or phase, but do not specify the name of the stratagem. Again, you can only use on battle tactic stratagems. So again, that free CP or use again is hit by that. Alas, previous discussion pretty much hits that one very much so.
Yep. Which actually means for any of my Tau people in the chat, that means that Pure Tide Engram Neurochip is functionally dead because there are no stratagems that jump to my mind that we would desperately want to, you know, spend an extra CP on. So that's an enhancement that goes away, but at this point I'm kind of waiting for because we're getting a codex very, very soon, especially with the cadence that they're releasing. It's these two that we spoke about, Necrons, then us. Still though, I am happy to lose something. I am happy to lose out if it means that the health of the game gets pushed up. And I feel like everybody should have that opinion. The health of the game matters more than any individual faction.
Yep, 100%. Next up, we've got to change the Fire Overwatch stratagem. So
yes, let me drag this onto my screen.
Yeah, so this change, you now have to be visible. You have to actually be able to see the unit that you're overwatching.
So good, so good.
And
rip to the Imperial Guard players though.
Yeah, and you can't target a Titanic unit with this stratagem.
Man, I feel like Knights have really copped it. Do you feel the same? That like Chaos Knights and Knights have just been like constantly getting bodied?
I think it's more the Titanic, the not just Titanic, but I think they actually mean they've put. Here's what I've just noticed: they put Titanic keyword on it, right? But is that different from the towering keyword? That's the interesting thing. Do they mean to put Titanic, or have they meant to put towering?
That is an interesting one because there are models that have towering but don't have Titanic, correct?
I believe so.
Interesting. So I wonder then if we're going to see armies that have access to that just shift immediately to that, or if Overwatch was only really good on the stuff that has the Titanic keyword. I'm not across enough people's data sheets to know. I know that it's killed it for my Tau-Na and for my Storm Surge, which I wasn't really using it on them anyway, so yeah, whatever. I am really keen to see where lists go. I might reach out to a couple of my Chaos Knights and Knights friends and see what they think. Yeah.
Feud has just popped in as well, saying he's predicting all Knights will be Armigers or War Dogs lists now going forward.
We were kind of already seeing that anyway, weren't we? Like the War Dog and the Armiger spam was just most of the lists that I was seeing. There may have been like a big knight here and there as like an anchor or whatever, but I was seeing a lot of it.
Yeah, I was generally seeing knight lists anywhere between no big knights to at most 2 big knights. That's what I was seeing in lists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And none of the huge knights like the Castellans. It was all the middle-sized knights. It wasn't the big boys either. So.
Yeah, actually, last weekend at Towers, I got to play a guy who was running the big-ass Forge World Imperial Knight one. Though throughout our game, he was like, hey, man, I'm not going to win this. I play casually. I got kids. Like, you know, let's just have some fun. I'm like, cool, man. I loved that model, but I could also see why Knights players weren't taking it. It's for how much he had to invest in it, it just wasn't doing it. So, and I feel like that's kind of where Knights are in. And maybe, you know, people in chat, let us know that there are a lot of index I feel are being sort of cornered into that. And I wonder if this change is going to do that more to those indexes, really push them to the things that don't have to worry about these changes and still get to play with their toys. Yeah.
So Junos in my chat has just brought up lost Overwatch on Magnus in T-Suns because he's got Titanic but not towering.
Oh, okay. He did nothing wrong. Oh, poor Magnus.
Mm.
Oh, poor Magnus.
But yeah, that's a big change. I
Yeah,
would
that
now
is a very
say.
big change.
And
Yeah.
having that confirmation that there is both the Titanic and Towering keywords floating around does mean that they do intend it on Titanic only, not just Towering.
Yeah,
Or didn't use it in the
okay.
wrong spot. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and actually, let's actually talk about Towering so that we can put a bit of context to this one. I'll drag it on because it was in this section of the it was in the ruins and visibility section just next to it in the document that I've
Which
got.
we may as well hit on now.
Yeah, because this one was a buff to aircraft, funnily enough. But Towering models that are within this feature, notice it doesn't say wholly within anymore, can also see out of it normally. So functionally, what this change does is that the caveat that you know, Towering just ignores ruins is not true anymore.
Yep.
They are bound by ruins, but anybody who's familiar with the core rules knows that units have to be wholly within area terrain in order to be to see out of it and be able to shoot out. People could still see you if you towed onto it. You just couldn't shoot through it. You had to have a part of your model that was not crossing over the base or the ruin in order to shoot normally or be wholly within it. Knights could never do that. There is, I don't think, any base with the ruins that you normally see on competitive tables. There is no way a knight is able to stand wholly within that terrain feature. In my opinion, fantastic change. We'll see how it works out. I think at my event, I may still be running first floor blocked out on like 3-story ruins or whatever else. But I will actually have a chat to a lot of the, you know, the more competitive people that I sort of liaise with and get opinions of and everything else to see if that's a necessary change. But what do you think, Scotty? Because I actually like this as a change.
I love this change. I think it was really rough for everyone else outside of the Towering models that they could just see through. Sure, you might be able to see the Towering unit, but the Towering unit being able to see you through ruins was a massive issue. You look at stuff like Wraith Knights, you look at the bigger Knights and everything now as well, means that, you know, now it's one of those things where whilst you're within that terrain feature, if you've got Towering, you can see through and shoot through and vice versa. But if you're not, then your units are still protected. You can still hide behind terrain. You can still actually be like, okay, I don't have to necessarily be on this terrain feature and still get the benefit of the obscuring a part of the rule without copying 48-inch range rapid fire battle cannons. Right?
And that is the big thing. It removes Alpha Strike from the Knights, which is one of the things that if they got the go first roll, you just went and met whatever maker you believe in. Yeah. So and I will point out, so Cooper put into the chat that it was a no change to aircraft. So because I wasn't running them, I mustn't have been across that. Aircraft is still able to do that. Them having that caveat in there is fantastic. Aircraft can still see normally, so it means that a unit that suffers from start and strat reserve come on, you still get to get value out of that unit because most aircraft will just get shot out of the skies. The other thing that, you know, I'll really say is with that Alpha Strike going away, it means that it pushes us more to competitive games where decisions matter. You can stage, you can have stuff that, you know, needs to be in certain positions to score or whatever else, and not just be like, cool, if I go anywhere there, I'm within his range and I'm dead. And that is just so healthy for the game. And hopefully it pushes Imperial Knights into list building and play style where, one, it's interactive for them and their opponent, because I know Imperial Knights players that didn't like what was happening and actually switched off the faction. One of the players we're going to talk about just went to Orcs because it was his main faction before. And he's like, you know what? I'm actually having fun playing the game with my opponent. It's funny that there's a lot that gets thrown around on like Reddit and everything else about like, oh, all competitive players like win at all costs, blah, blah, blah.
Nah.
It's actually really not the case.
We still want to enjoy the game too, right?
Yeah, like there are so many people that are like, no, you know what? Like I like to win and I'm going to play as hard as I can. But I don't like when I'm just unfairly stomping my opponent through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
There are so many highly ranked competitive players that are not those people. And it kind of gives me faith in humanity. Like sometimes I feel like I'm a vat of acid away from becoming the supervillain that ends our species. But like that really just kind of brings me back down to earth and makes me really like so many of the people in the competitive sphere, which is, really great.
Yeah. So the last change we've got for the core rules is also another stratagem. It's the Insane Bravery strat. It's 1 CP, except now
Yes.
it's changed to where, so when you do it, Battle Shock step of your command phase, just before you take a Battle Shock test for your army, you target a unit that must take a Battle Shock test. The effect is you automatically pass the Battle Shock test. Restrictions, you cannot use this stratagem more than once per battle.
Fantastic.
Yep.
This alone, Scotty, means that, like, because everybody was saying Battle Shock kind of means nothing. Because a lot of the time, especially with the reduction in CP, people would have CP lying around for the one time that they failed a Battle Shock test.
Yeah.
Now, I'm looking at my little piranhas that run up and at the end of my movement phase Battle Shock people without even being able to see them, just within 12. And I actually had a Custodians player fail 2 Battle Shocks in a row, 2 battle rounds in a row. And he's just like, nut zero. And that felt really, really horrible that, you know, an ability that I had invested into just gets nothing. Whereas now people actually have to consider it. You have to consider before you roll. It's not just a yeah, but no. Yeah, I like it. I really like it.
I like it as well. It's a nice change. Means the Battle Shock's going to have a bit more of an impact as well. And it's much more akin to what it was in 9th edition, where it was a once per battle as well.
Yes. Which was still healthy for the game. Like, I found in 9th, there was something people kept in their back pocket, and they're like, you know what? There is a moment where I absolutely cannot fail this. I will make an active decision to use a resource there. And I love that for competitive play. I really
100%.
do.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to get into some of the faction changes, which there is a decent amount from what I'm looking at. Yeah, there's a lot. So we're going to kind of run through these a bit quicker. We'll kind of cover a faction at a time, give a brief thoughts, and then move on. So first one up is Adeptus Custodes. The Unwavering Sentinel stratagem has been changed to an Epic Deed stratagem.
Yep.
Custodian Guard, you can now only take a maximum of 5 Custodian Guard in a unit. So you can either take up between 4 and 5. Yep. Custodian Wardens can be taken between 4 and 5. Virtus Praetors can be taken between 2 and 3.
Now, the Virtus Praetors we weren't seeing a ton, but the Wardens and the Guard, oh, so good. 6-man bricks did my head in. Yep.
Also, the 9-man bricks of Custodian Guard as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just I'm going to stand here and you need to commit your whole army, and even then you probably won't kill me. Yeah, so, look, you know, Custodians have been copped in this one. I don't know whether, like, I don't have enough information really to comment on whether it was enough, not enough, too much, but it does feel like they've pushed them down to the point where they shouldn't just be an auto-dominant faction, which is great.
I agree. Feud in chat has also pointed out that they did receive some point nerfs as well, and between the Dev Wounds change, 0 CP, they've copped a lot of hurt from this balance update. Yeah,
and Feud actually said in my chat, which, how are you doing this, Feud? Do you have 4 hands? That we're probably not going to see anybody but Nathan, and we're going to be talking about Nathan, I believe. But you know, I kind of agree. I think it'll be the diehard Custodians to kind of stay on.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so we'll wait for the dust to settle. See if everybody's got reactions. Admech, Scotty, going from 5-ups to 4-up.
Yeah. So
no, sorry. A 4-up unit for Skitarii Rangers and Vanguard, and a 5-up Invulnerable. Now, I don't know enough about Admech. Is this good?
Previously, there was 6-up. Like it's
good, right?
So previously, it was a 4-up with a 6-up Invo on them. So they've increased to a 5-up Invulnerable save, which increases their survivability by about, I think it's 16.6% on the Invulnerable save. And it means that if you're firing weapons that are better than an AP of -1, you're wasting your firepower into them.
Which is a decision-making point that I like having your opponent have to make, even just at the list building stage. So that's really good. That's really good.
So hopefully that will help Admech a bit. They did get a lot of points relief as well. I don't think we're going to flick over the points here, but they did get some points decreases, which means they might actually be able to put more stuff on the field. And it means that, you know, if you're taking Vanguard and Rangers, they're going to be a lot more survivable on the tabletop as well. Yeah,
I was actually having a chat with Alex Anglazos where he was sort of running through it, and the the stat efficiency of ScottyD, which is supposed to be like AdMech's sort of version of like Space Marines, I beat him with Fire Warriors, which are T3 single wound, like 4-up save, and I had better stat efficiency than he had per point, which is just not the place you want to see them. So that's really fantastic. Yeah.
Next up, sorry.
Yeah, the big one. No, you go, Scotty. The big one that I'm looking at. I'll be over here salivating.
The Eldari. The Phantasm stratagem, you can now only target infantry. You cannot target anything else. It is just one infantry unit only.
Yep.
Massive. Absolutely massive. You couple that with the changes we've already seen in the core rules, on top of the points increases that they got, you know, Wraith Knights going up to 510 points. Fire Prisms, I think, went up to 180.
180. Yep,
which
180.
They've got some massive point increases. I dare say now, if you're going to see someone take a Wraith Knight and some other things, they're not going to have much else in their list. So
they're really
this
not.
change on top
Devastating
of it,
Wounds not spilling over, they're not nearly as efficient for the points that you spend.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Massive change for Eldari. And hopefully that will curtail their 68% win rate that they had just of last weekend. Like, there was 69 the weekend before.
Yep.
You know, Nova Open, for example, and this is the funny thing, right? And I'm going to pull this on. The Warhammer stream from Nova Open was looking at the second bracket for their stream games because the first bracket was just all Eldar mirrors.
Ridiculous. And I think the win rate that gets put up on the stats page, I think it's only really Meta Monday that removes the mirror so that you can see that. But with the mirror intact, they drop a little. Or that might be with the mirror, that number, but it was actually higher when you remove the mirror, just purely against other factions. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, when you're that dominant in a tournament circuit, you will have mirrors nonstop. And to be honest, I actually despise playing a mirror into the faction that I'm playing. I like to play against somebody who has a different game plan to me, and you're not just playing a game of chicken or who goes first.
Yeah.
So, yeah, bringing that in, and it's funny that, you know, for both of our chats, changing one line of text, this will have such an enormous flow on effect. Because Phantasm was the best stratagem in the game.
Yeah.
Like, I have no problem saying that outright. Phantasm was the best stratagem in the game. And now looking at this with infantry, it means that you're still going to be able to play a game plan with them. You're still going to be able to use the infantry probably to a healthy level, but you're not going to be like, I poke out with a Wraith Knight, I poke back in. You can't shoot me. You know, you're not able to be like, oh, you were going to charge my Fire Prism, but now he's, you know, 7 inches away. And it just,
All right, next up, Agents of the Imperium. Now, this is a pretty important change. It kind of goes in line with Custos, because this is where I'm seeing it used the most. Exaction squads have been changed to just being a flat 10 model unit. You cannot take 5 of them. You have to take the 10, which means instead of being, 35 points, they're up to like 55, 60?
They actually got a points increase as well, I believe. I've got the Munitorium Field Manual up. Let me go Agents of the Imperium, because I was looking at them. Thanks to Chris O'Neill, I am working on a Sisters army, because I've always loved me some Sisters. The Exaction squads, 10 to 11 models, 110 points.
Ooh, yeah.
So they went up to, 55 for a 10-man, and then they got automatically doubled. You cannot take less.
Yeah.
So where before, you were slotting in 10 of these guys for 70 points. Now 110. That is a massive tax. And I actually had in my stream last night, Pat Spooner was talking about Voidsman now being the thing that they're going to throw in.
Yep. Voidsman.
Yep.
Or even small sisters silent squads.
Yes.
Because they're cheaper. 4-mans for 40 points.
Which really, we were seeing people use Exaction squads as action monkeys, backfield objective holders.
Pretty much.
You know, just warm bodies that can just score you points. You weren't like, oh my god, I've got all these guns and I'm gonna kill everybody. That wasn't their job. So if you can spend minimal points, they will probably do it again.
Yeah, exactly. Then the other changes for them, you can only take up to 2 of them with replacing their combat shotguns with various weapons, but you can't take any duplicates still. So it's now only 2 per unit. I believe if you took a unit of 10, you could take 4.
You could take 4 because it used to be for every 5-man, 2 could have their replaced. Yep. Yep.
So that'll hit Custodes a bit. Outside of that, not sure where else that has a little bit of play.
It'll have a flow on to, I think, a fair few of Imperium armies, because it was an option to just immediately get high points efficiency units to do, as we were saying, action monkeying or backfield objective holding. Which means you could really funnel more points into your main faction and get the things that you wanted to get, and not have to go for slightly more expensive units that fill the same role from your main roster. So I think this will have a flow-on effect.
Yeah,
I'd love to see what Imperium players are going to plug in.
Yeah. Cool. So next up, we got Death Guard, which is a change to the Spread the Sickness detachment rule. The only real change here is that this is actually, you add the following to the start of this rule. So it is entirely brand new for this.
Yep.
So this is going to change them a lot. During the declare battle formation step, select one of the sicknesses below until the end of the battle. All units from your army with the Nurgle's gift ability gains this selected sickness. You've got Skull Swarm Blight, which is an aura. Enemy units within contagion range worsen ballistic skill and weapon skill by 1 for weapons they're equipped with.
Yep.
Rattle Joint Augur. It's another aura. Whilst enemy unit is within contagion range, worsen the save by 1. Or Scabrous Soul Rot, you worsen the leadership and objective control of enemy units by 1 to a minimum of 1. And Feud in chat, being a Death Guard player previously, has mentioned Skull Swarm, amazing versus melee. Rattle Joint, amazing versus everyone else. Scabrous, minimum 1 ruins it.
That was my initial take, hearing you read that out. Skull Swarm, I can see where it'd just go to melee, because you're going to be coming up the board, but most ranged factions are going to not want to get anywhere near you. So that would absolutely make sense. And being able to drop their save means that, if they've got deep strikers like the Death Shroud Terminators or whatever else, I don't know the range of their auras, so I may be, talking without all the facts here, but just being able to get within that contagion range of people on your turn and go, when I try and kill you, you are just functionally worse. That is actually really great.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 9 inches, because Feud just mentioned they walk outside a 9 and shoot anyway. So I think it's a 9-inch aura, I believe. Okay. But Feud can probably.
So yeah, it won't be deep strike, but at the very least, it'll be the slow march of death up the board. Eventually, they're going to get to the point where they're in range of you. Yeah.
Yes. Next up, we've seen a slight change to the Death Watch stratagem. So as I mentioned before, for Dragon Firebolts, Hellfire rounds, Kraken rounds, you now have to specifically select bolt weapons.
Okay.
So you can't do it on Plasma Exterminators, for example.
Which would have been very powerful.
Yeah. So it also, it does make sense. They're meant to be bolter rounds that go into bolters. So
yeah, I don't know how you alter a plasma round when it's a superheated ball of energy, basically.
Yeah. So this makes sense. They've got a massive list of bolt weapons there. The one thing that I'm quite happy with is they do call out the Stern Guard bolt rifles, the Stern Guard bolt pistols, and such as well. So it does work with Stern Guard vets once again.
Very good.
And a lot of the traditional, bolt guns. It does. So here's the interesting thing. Previously in 9th edition, special issue ammunition did not work with Storm Bolters. The stratagems, they took it away. And now the stratagems now work with Storm Bolters once again.
Okay.
Which is good. Means Terminators.
Well, yeah, having more options is always good from a competitive standpoint. If there's one thing that we can achieve, giving players choice will generally always create a healthier environment. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. Junos in chat said Death Guard could potentially be 3 inches, 6 inches, 9 inches over battle rounds as well for that aura. So
okay. Yeah.
As the game goes on. All right. Next up, Gene Stealer Cults, and this is a massive change. You now have to roll for everybody. So when a unit is destroyed, roll 1d6, and you only add 1 to the result if it is a battle line unit, and add 1 to the result if it is the first or second part round. On a 5+, no longer 4+, 5+, the unit comes back. That is huge. Interesting.
So, looking at this, I feel like some of the, because Genestealer Cults still have fantastic demo charges. They've also got the Atalan Jackals and Outriders gangs ability. I think it's just the range of that has changed on that. But like they've still got plenty of their damage. They've still got so many of their tricks. They've got, all that sort of stuff. But I do feel like this is going to push them down quite heavily. And there was a GSC player in the Knobs chat, Joseph, who mentioned that his list went up like 300 points or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have really been slapped. GSC really, really have been clapped.
Yep, very much so. This will take the knees out of them from turn 3 onwards. Like, having to roll, battle line units, sure, it's still a 4 up, but everything else being 5 up now actually means that you can kill units reliably and have them not come back.
Yeah.
It actually means that the damage you do in a game actually has some impact rather than your opponent being like, I just roll a 4 up, unit comes back, or it's a battle line, they automatically come back.
Yeah, and I do like that they've put in here a mitigation for Alpha Strike as well, where on a 3 up, you're bringing back your battle line units with everything else, which means that even if somebody goes first, there's still a good to decent chance you're going to have units on the board, even though your opponent won the go first roll. So and then the 9 inches of a battlefield edge, and at least 1 touching your Cult Ambush marker for the Atlan Jackals. This range, I believe, got reduced from 12 inches. Is that correct?
I believe so for them. So you were seeing a couple of units of Atlan Jackals being taken quite popularly in GSC lists. But, to bring that nerf in, I mean, there's also the thing of where some units do have to be within 3 inches of that marker as well now. So you can't just string them all out. So this is the only unit that you can actually string them out a little bit.
Which, GSC really were winning previously. Like, good damage, but also just swarming board control. And if you didn't have the means to control that, you just kind of auto lost the game. Really, really good changes. Really good changes.
Next up, we got Grey Knights. Really small change here. The Haloed in Soulfire strat has changed to Strategic Ploy instead of whatever it was previously. I think it might have been a battle tactic, so it means that they don't get to double spend.
Yep, and I believe that Haloed in Soulfire is when they come onto the board, they get a -1 to hit against them, but functionally the stealth keyword. I think that was it. I haven't kept up with my Grey Knights as much as I probably should have. But I feel like this is a change to just, because they're teleporting all over the board. They got some massive point reductions in this data slate. I feel like this is all right, we don't want every single turn you to have, like, say, 2 big bricks of Terminators or Paladins come down and then be hard to hit as well as hard to shift on top of them. So, that just feels like policing them a little bit. And maybe if it's too much, we'll see a change down the track.
100%. All right, Imperial Knights. Yet again, they've seen some more changes. The Bondsman abilities now can only target armigers. You can't target bigger knights with them. And they've changed the Thunderous Stomp stratagem to being Epic Deed. The Trophy
No more
Claim,
double stomp.
And the Trophy Claim and Valiant Last Stand are both 2 CP now as well. So they've really hit Knights hard here.
I don't know that we're going to see a lot of Knights at my GT. I can't speak for other events, but most of the people that may have played Knights, I don't know that we'll see them anymore. We'll probably just see the diehards.
Quite possibly. With the points increase as well, I know Feud called it out a bit earlier. Seeing armature-only builds is probably going to become a lot more common if people do play them. Maybe taking 1 big knight for the Bondsman ability. With the
I guess that's what we're chatting about before, that armigers are still fantastic. So I may be completely off base and we just see them go, cool, I'll drop 1 of my big knights and that will functionally let me put in, maybe 2 little boys and then some agents of the Imperium or whatever else. Armigers are still fantastic, but I think you're right. I think there's 1 just as a linchpin to sort of hand out the Bondsman, but Knights have really, really copped it across the last few updates.
100%. It's also important to note that it's mainly Imperial Knights that have seen the big changes. We don't see any actual faction changes for Chaos Knights. Because Imperial Knights are on the higher end, Chaos Knights are below that 50% mark, so they've decided not to touch them.
Though importantly, I believe Chaos Knights saw some point increases that have the player base is not super happy about that.
Okay.
But you know, remains to be seen. I'm not knowledgeable enough to make a proper comment on that.
Yeah. I'm going to hit Space Marines real quick because the Votan one's got a little bit to it. Space Marines, Desolators, we know they've been a problem. They've gone to a unit of 5 max now. You just take 5, and that's it. And they're 200 points for a single brick of 5.
Yeah, they got double hit, and I think triple hit because Cooper pointed out in my chat, Desolator's not getting anti-infantry 2+ is great. So I'm assuming that means that they have lost that keyword maybe, or just reigning in this unit. I'm keen to see how this goes. Like you mentioned that you've got a particular Marines list that you're playing, but we really were seeing so many lists kind of using Desolation Marines as a crutch.
Yes.
And I wonder what's going to happen after this.
Yeah, pretty much if you're running Marines, whether it was Deathwatch, whether it was various different Marine builds, you were taking at least 1 unit of 10 for 340 points. So they've not just seen, they've seen actually another 30 point per 5 increase. So if you're taking still that two units, you're paying 400 points. That's a 60 point increase in your list.
Yeah. And Cooper clarified, Desolators can't use the Deathwatch strat for anything.
Yeah.
So I think it is healthy because reigning in out of line of sight, especially because they've got Blast. There's a few factions like Genestealer cults have been hit. I think Necrons have been hit with points, not actual rules changes, but
a little.
When you have a unit like that can potentially, like there was a 10-man Desolation squad that hit Pete's Necron Warrior Blob for like over 100 hits. And that out of line of sight from the other side of the table may feel like something that isn't conducive to a competitive environment.
I would agree. I would very much agree.
So good to see him changed. Luckily, Space Marines have a full codex coming.
Yep.
So I feel like maybe we may have the diehards still playing Space Marine, everybody else just waiting, and then picking up the codex and kind of dissecting that and going from there.
Yeah, 100%. Next up, we got Votan. Now, I'm going to quote Gary Morris on this one. He reckons this change is a bit much on top of the points drops that they got.
I would tend to agree. I think
League so as
League
well.
of Votan is my second faction. I read this and I was like, oh my god, I may actually end up playing these guys.
So to walk through the change,
yes.
So you select a number of units from your opponent's army depending on the battle size. So Strike Force of tournament play, you're picking 4 units now instead of, because I think it was 1, 2, and 3 previously. Now it's 2, 4, and 6.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
So each of those units start the battle with 2 judgment tokens. If at the start of any of the command phases, any of those units have been destroyed, you gain a number of CP depending on how early in the battle you destroyed it. As shown, there's probably a table that follows that you can only gain CP in this way once per battle. CP gained in this way is an exemption to the core rules that limit the maximum number of CP you can gain per battle round.
Thank you for putting that line in, GW. I hate seeing arguments based on that when this one, there was a very clear intent that if you were gaining 3 CP turns 1 and 2 for killing that unit, that you probably should be allowed to have that CP. So that's really great. And for anybody who doesn't know, the Eye of the Ancestors Judgment tokens is the first token is +1 to hit when targeting that unit. The second is +1 to wound, which means you've got 4 units on the board. And usually in a lot of games that I've played, there are 4 key units, at least 4, that you just want to remove from the board, that you absolutely need to kill at all costs in order to win your game. Use the +1 to hit and wound army-wide against those guys. That is great.
Yep. Feud has just confirmed in chat that it was just 1 previously. So now it's gone up massively.
It's quadruply better.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's massive to get that +1 to hit, +1 to win, as you were just saying as well, which is great. And the points drops means you're going to see more models on the board for Votan as well.
Yeah, I did see a little bit of a salty, and I'll put our cameras back up for my stream. I did see a little bit of a salty Reddit post where the Leagues of Votan players were very understandably upset about a lack of synergy in their book and that sort of stuff. And I feel that from a Tau Codex that suffers a little bit from the same. But having said that, they were like, oh, we don't want to be a Horde army. And everybody that's out there sort of looking at this or watching this as post-VODs or whatever, this balanced data slate was originally, so far as I know, supposed to be points adjustments. But because of the dumpster fire the 10th ended up being, GW have stepped in with other factions that were particularly egregious. And I wholly support that. And I said this in my Tau change last night on stream, that I'm okay that we didn't have any rules changed. I really, really am. Because the worst got brought down, which means that even without points changes for my faction, we went up. And then we got points changes. So now it's time to sort of work within the bounds of that, wait for codexes, or if your codex is coming very, very far down the track, wait for the next balanced data slate that actually targets some of those. Because I kind of do see where GW is coming from, where knocking all of those top factions down, even with those changes, we don't know where the dust is going to settle. We don't know where the meta is going to be. If you then hyper bump all the factions that are there, you might overcorrect by an enormous margin and not put yourself in any better situation. It's just a different army name that people are saying that they hate. So, yeah.
Yeah, very much so. So that covers it for the balance changes in terms of the factions and core rules. But there's two things that I want to call out from the rules commentary, and then we can kind of discuss some other things that we haven't touched in terms of the points, and then we can move on. So the first change, and Jay, you're going to have a bit more insight into this being a Tau player, because it actually impacts Tau, is he eligible to shoot? Rules clarification, the rules commentary. So when equipped with ranged weapons, unless the rule specifically states otherwise, units that have units that have shot are no longer eligible to shoot until the start of the next phase. So this means that you can't have a unit that is already shot be an observer unit for another unit. Yes. Now,
so there was an argument raging amongst the Tau community, which I despised, about whether we could daisy chain our observers and whether we couldn't. I played it both ways, and honestly, I didn't really notice a difference. I noticed that my units with terrible guns got to shoot slightly better and then do no wounds anyway, because I always had observers for the people that I actually cared about. One of the big things that I believe that this is targeting, Tau is a flow-on effect, and it is good that this will just kill the thing. And any Tau players, regardless of what you thought before, just play the rules that are written here. That's what we should always be doing. Whatever the current actual rule is, play that. No one be salty, no one be shitty about it. Just that's the rules.
Yeah.
What this actually targets the most, which I'm very, very happy about, are these cards. Because there are certain cards that you had that you could shoot and then still be eligible to shoot and then do an action and get 5 victory points just for no reason. Just for literally no reason. And that I was looking at, I'm like, okay, I feel really conflicted because they've written down rules which benefit my faction, which is underperforming. But then I look at the secondary cards and I'm like, there is no way that this could be what they meant, because you should have to give up your damage in order to do it.
Yes.
And so this, I think, is like the healthiest change that we could get. Again, I don't care that it affected my faction because I feel like it was a nil change anyway. We just work in pairs and everybody scores their cards in a very healthy way. And I like that they also put in the caveat for units equipped without ranged weapons, which means that eligibility to shoot still functions for melee-only units. Unless they advance, fall back, or lock in combat. They can still, rules as written, do actions, continue to support you from a secondary or a primary mission thing. Really just a healthy change. I am 100% behind it.
Biggest one there, Scarab Swarms.
Scarab Swarms, yes.
Yep, 40 points for 3 bases, and they can go do actions for you.
Which is really, really great. It is really, really great. Sam Lemon, my man, ScottyD, baby. Big love you lads with a heart. Love you too, Sam.
Sam the man. Good bloke. All right, then the next rules commentary change, I've already got it highlighted up on screen. Vehicles with bases. When measuring to and from vehicles with bases excluding aircraft and walkers, always measure to the closest part of the model for all rule purposes, i.e. measure to and from its base or its hull. Thank you.
Is just, oh my goodness. This was such a feel-bad moment for anybody who didn't realize that you were only going off bases. And I remember watching War Master, seeing Liam play his Necrons into an Eldari player. Dude thought he had like a 2-inch charge, and Liam's like, actually, it's a 5-inch charge. And you rolled a 4. I'm sorry, man, that's a fail. It goes off the base. And the dude's like, and like, you know, that is absolutely no shade at Liam. He just understood the rules and positioned accordingly. The other player got caught out because unless you're reading this tiny little section of the core rules, you just all of a sudden have a game plan that falls apart.
Yep.
And it doesn't make sense. Why should I have to like slide under a ghost arc to touch the very center of it, be like, now I can stab you.
Yeah. And so to further go through the rule, it's whichever is closest. So it's always got to be the closest part. So it's no longer being, I'm going to pick the base because it's going to be further for you. No, it's always closest.
Yes.
And when a model ends a move within engagement range of one or more vehicles with bases excluding aircraft and walkers, it is considered to be in base-to-base contact with that vehicle or those vehicles whilst it's within 0-inch horizontally and 5-inch vertically of any part of those vehicle models. So it also applies to combat
vehicles. Which it never made sense to me. And I played this against the Imperial Knights player that I played at Towers. I just said, like, you make your charge and you touch the base, because he was charging a Piranha. And I'm like, you come into contact with my hull, I'm happy you're base to base. That's done. Because it never made sense to me and I wasn't going to play that. And this is just so healthy. Again, it is just so healthy for the game. I am 100% on board. Because at the end of the day, you shouldn't have players have to measure from different points depending on what they were doing. If I can shoot from any point of my model to any point of your model, but then for other things, we have to go base to base, you create a level of confusion that adds to the jump that certain players will have to make to either get into the game or go from casual to slightly competitive or, you know, middle tables to like, I want to start winning event.
Yeah.
Really great. Really, really great.
Yeah. So with just looking at the time, we've got a little bit more time left. So I reckon points changes, there's been enough discussion out there, some brief notes on that. Necron saw some increases, some decreases. Notably, Lichguard did go up. I believe they went up by about 15 points a unit, so they're decently priced. But Warrior Bricks went down 10 points per 10. So that's a big change for them as well. Ooh. So if you're wanting to run more of a Silvertide style build, you can do that with cheaper Warrior Bricks now. Instead of being 240 points, they're 220.
That actually makes me, like, you know, sweat a little bit because Liam clapped me with a Warriors list. And what he did with it, I just, I didn't get PTSD from Afghanistan, but I think I still wake up screaming at night thinking about what he did to me with those Necrons. And, like, So yeah, I obviously hate Necrons, just from the fact that like they have so many cool shenanigans with reanimating and doing all that sort of stuff. But I do like that they have gone, okay, there is a very, very dominant build. Let's move from that and give you more options. I will always be a fan of options within an army. So that's not a Necrons player, but it sounds like they've got a little bit more that they can do. And I mean, Lichguard were, by all accounts, overperforming anyway. So I'd be keen to see if there's any Necron players that actually go, you know what, Lichguard, I won't spam, but maybe I'll keep a unit in because it offers something particularly, but I can add in other stuff. Yeah,
I've been playing one unit, and I find that they do a good job. But I've also watched 2 units go to town. I haven't seen 3 yet in a list. But yeah, you need a lot of support to make them really do what you want them to do with the Technomancer, the Crypto Thralls, and the Overlord in there, or Lord. The Crypto Thralls did go up to 60 points from 40. The Heavy Destroyers are now 50 points per model as well. Scorpic Destroyers actually dropped in price to 100 points per 3. Ophidian Destroyers also did drop to 100 points per 3, I believe, or they might even dropped a bit cheaper. So there's been not necessarily just increases on the popular stuff, but decreases on the stuff that hasn't necessarily been taken as popularly. Very similar for Marines. In Infiltrators, quite common. They went up to 100 points from 90. You've got Incurs has actually dropped from 90 to 85. Assault General Intercessors, just Bolter Intercessors, dropped from 95 to 85. Redemptor Dreadnoughts went down to, I think it was 210 instead of 225. So there's been a lot of units in the Marines that did see drops, but you've also, as we said, Desolators have also seen a bit of an increase as well.
Which is good. It creates an air where there will be more diversity in it because, like, we weren't seeing anybody take Intercessors. Like, there was no top list I was looking at that had a single Intercessor in their list.
No.
Maybe Assault Intercessors, but yeah, you really need to, like, whenever we're looking at these things, and, you know, again, for everybody, don't look at your faction in a vacuum. I think there's going to be a little bit more of a broad metagame. Yes, people will still take the stuff that is the most points efficient in as many multiples as they can within the rules, but that's really good. And at least it'll give the Marines something after this massive Desolation change to hold them out until their Codex drops.
Yeah.
Did Gilliman get hit at all?
I'm not sure. I didn't look at any of the special characters. I think there might have been some adjustments.
Yeah, I'd be interested in whether the Booberry with Ultra Depression is still going to be on the table.
I can have a quick look to see.
It's
going to be a fair way down, so I just need to wait for it to hit there. All right, here we go.
While you're having a look at that, Town Votan players, we won this data slate.
You guys come out really well.
We are about to have a lot of fun.
So Roboot Gilliman, 380 points.
Okay, do you know what he was before? Is there a change to that?
It is red, so it has been changed, so I think it might have been increased. Okay.
I mean, I guess an increase on him does kind of make sense. We're seeing him a ton. Taylor, I went from 23 models to 59 models in my tower list.
Yeah, nice.
Let's go!
Yeah, and I've got Cypher in chat. 3K Votan list in 9th is now 1,900 points in 10th for what he was running.
I mean, like, I love that there are other people getting their time to shine. I really hope they have some fun in the tournament sphere because, everything was pointy before, but now it's the year of the beard.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yep. All right. So I reckon we're just looking at time. We're not going to have time to discuss missions. We were potentially going to discuss it, but why don't we save that for the next one when we get close to the event? We can talk about the missions you have got in place. When we talk about lists and stuff from players that are attending after list sub. Yep. Let's talk about some of the attending players.
Now, real quick, Sam did hit me with Girly Man went up plus 25.
25, okay.
Yep.
Good to know. Thanks, Sam.
All right. So do you want to kick us off, man? Who do you want to talk about? So everybody, we are going to be pointing out some of the players that are our kind of players to watch. We can't run through everybody. Scotty and I are both massive fans of so many people in the New South Wales circuit. So if your name isn't mentioned, it's not because you're not good enough or anything else. But there are a couple of people that I want to call out as sort of like rising stars in the circuit. There's a couple of people that are just like always putting down results if anybody wants to look at like lists and everything else to sort of replicate. But this is not meant to be an exclusive list, but we can only talk about so many people, or Scotty and I will be here until like, midday 3 days from now, and beards are like this much bigger. So So Scotty, why don't you kick us off, man?
I'm going to hit the top. We're going to look at Brodie Middleton. He came off a strong undefeated win at TNAO last weekend. And he's first in the South Pacific rankings. He's ahead of Alex by 12 points on the ITC rank. I think it's like 11 points, 12 points, very close there. Really strong. Alex is nipping at his heels, which is the next person to keep an eye on. But to inform us as to what Brodie might actually be fielding, we've actually got his overview on screen. He played Eldari last weekend. However, he has got a history of playing Tyranids and Ashmil Tarim as well. So with the new Tyranid Codex coming out, I think he might pivot to Tyranids.
I think that is, like, even Tyranids before their Codex, he was doing a very, very good job on the Swarm list, where you have 1 billion bodies, Spore Mines with fixed secondaries scoring for you, and just like a really obnoxious list. I would be, after the data slate changes that we've seen, I would almost commit to eating my shoe if he is not on Tyranids and doing well with it. Doing very, very well. And for context for everybody, Alex Englazos was our New South Wales Masters winner from last year. He is an Art of War coach. He was a coach for Team New South Wales. He went over for WTC for the Australia team. A really, really fantastic player. And for Brodie Middleton to be beating him, when he came from England to Australia, he was the rank 1 Eldari at, in 9th, when they weren't egregious, but they were good. So he was putting down results with a faction that he loves. And he's like one of the few people I will never call a meta chaser for playing Eldari when they were good, because he was already bombing them. Like he was just nuking people from orbit. And he's also a little bit of a smiling assassin. Like this is one of the nicest dudes that I think I've ever met. And yet he is a shark.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'd put him in a very similar category to Liam Hackett.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Brody is definitely one to watch. I would be very surprised if we don't have him on your stream.
He might be, yeah.
As even just watching his gameplay, it is good to watch these players that not only put down results, but do it in a way that is just so consumable as content, watching their process and how they do things and interact with their opponent. Same with Alex Anglazos. Any game I've played against him, I'm like, dude, stop giving me so much information. You're helping me too much and beating me. Why are you doing this? Like,
the Stephen Box mentality. I love it. I love it because it's like and to speak to that kind of mentality, he wants to be playing where you've got the most information possible as well to make the most informed decisions. And even though he might still be beating you, he's helped you learn how to play against that faction a bit better. And so that nothing's left on the table, that you're not caught out by any gotcha moments, or you're not caught out by any feels bads because you didn't know X was able to do Y, for example. So
do
Alex,
you want to hear something ridiculous and funny?
Go for it.
Because like Alex has actually helped me set up my event. He's been instrumental in getting this off the ground for me. And we were chatting about he recently just got rank 1 Tyranids in the world by playing a melee only list. He carries around in his army box a Trigon base so he can put it down for his opponent and be like, that's where I will fit, that's where I'll fit, this is where I can come up, this is where I can come up, and actually show them physically exactly where he's going to go. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, and he's like, I don't know, man. It just keeps happening, and yet somehow I keep winning. I just
that is 100% the Stephen Box mentality in my mind.
Yes, yeah,
very much so. So to speak to Alex a bit, second place we already said 1,126 points, just shy of 27 points there. He, if BCP decides to load up the tab for me, that'd be nice.
It always does it. Have you actually noticed that recently? I've had BCP having some tantrums. Yeah,
it has been. So, whilst this is loading, he has been playing Tyranids recently, but he's been pretty solid on AdMech too. So, with the changed AdMechs, we might see him come back to it, but I think he's probably pretty safe on Tyranids, would be my bet.
Might be, though. Alex is a bit of a wild card because he loves to play the underdog. Like Masters, he won with AdMech when it was a 35% win rate army.
Yeah.
And so like, and you know, like every time I chat to him, he's always like, I've been playing this, but you know what? It's kind of too strong. I don't think I like it. I think I'm going to go and like troll some people with a Dune Crawler only AdMech list or whatever their units are. So Alex is actually a wild card for me. I will not put down a prediction for him. Because he is the Joker in 40k format. Like, he's a dog chasing cars. I don't know what he's going to do.
He's just going to do what he wants to do, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, the next player that you've pointed out, actually, Jay, Kyle Pearsons.
He's my player to watch in the New South Wales circuit. Kyle has, when I first started playing against him, I think he was relatively newer to the competitive sphere, very much like myself. Again, such a lovely, lovely dude to interact with. He was on Knights and went to Orcs because it was his main faction before. And he's like, I kind of just don't like what's going on with Knights right now. I'm having more fun with Orcs. And I played him at Towers with this Orc list that I won't give away, just in case he wants to play that at my GT.
Yeah.
But my God, it was a well put together list. And he piloted it so well. Even to the point where he was beating me so badly. Like, he made 4 6-up invulnerable saves against Seeker missiles and Melter 4 Piranha guns in a row. And then I rolled 1s for damage for my next set of multi-damage stuff. And he's picking up dice as he's just bodying me. Just like unmitigated. He's like, oh, dude, look, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, dude, no, don't apologize for your success. Like, I appreciate that you're self-aware, but you're doing so well. Like, lean into it, enjoy it. Which, you know, he is putting down results as well. We had him at Steel City that you were streaming. He was our only sword on Knights, and he played an amazing game. Even to the point where the Team Australia guys were having problems trying to not only match him, but beat him.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Which just, you know, you have a player that is that nice and lovely and healthy for the scene that is also putting down results without a single black mark on their record. That is just such a beacon of light that is really, really fantastic. I really, really hope he continues this streak because, he's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. He's currently ranked 8th in the South Pacific, sitting on 1,046 points. And currently, as you've said, he's been playing Orcs. He's also played Knights recently. As BCP loads up on screen for everybody else, he's been particularly back in 9th when sub-factions were a thing. He was playing more Goth Orcs, so potentially have got Gazgold in there as well. With a Rogue Leagues of Votann faction in there too for one event for an RTT. So he could pull out Votann, but if he's playing the Orcs and he's doing well with them in 10th, wouldn't be surprised if he plays them at Pantheon GT.
Yeah, I do know that Orcs got a couple of changes. I think some units cop some points nerfs. So I don't know yet whether that list actually functions. Seeing him take Votann would actually be fantastic. We were kind of talking about that because he loves his just a little guys as well. I would love to see him on Votann. I think that would be really, really cool. He tends to play all of his lists quite well, makes good tactical decisions. So I think whatever he fields, I would put my money on Orcs or Votann, and I think he will do well for it. I would be very, very surprised if he's not in the top 10.
Yeah, 100%. I'd agree with that. Next up, we've got Peter O'Neill. Now, Peter has been consistent throughout this year in the top 10.
Yes.
He was first place for a while there, but he has been in the top 10 consistently throughout this season, which is awesome to see. He's currently, 10th place on 994 points. But he's been playing Chaos Demons recently from what I've seen. Just pulling up his player profile now. He played Thousand Suns at TNA Open and came 10th with that. He played Chaos Demons at Exterminatus, but he's also played Eldari. He also played Genestealer Cults at Capital Clash here in Canberra a month ago. So he's got a couple of different factions that he can pull out for Pantheon.
Now, I am going to be super biased here because Pete is a very good friend of mine. So is his brother, Chris. They have been incredible with helping me have factions to be able to make content with or play or whatever else. And Pete is a question mark because I'm not sure he has a life outside of 40K because they own everything. They own literally everything. I have no idea how. And actually, to point out, I don't think Pete had a lot of time on that Thousand Suns list. So his result from the TNA Open is even more impressive, given that he just kind of jumped onto it, got his head around the rules and some of the interactions. He was talking with me a little bit for, Steel City. I had a couple of mistakes I made on Thousand Suns, so sort of passed on my learnings from that. And then he goes and pulls a 10th at a 100-player event. Yeah. Which, I think that Pete is another rising star in New South Wales. He has been sort of like when I first met him, still, sort of wrapping his head around very competitive stuff. Now, the team that he is the captain of, Knobs, is one of the biggest and most winning teams in New South Wales. Yeah. So, to put it, what will he play? I genuinely don't know. Yeah. I genuinely don't know. He's too much of a question mark.
Yep, because he's got so many factions available to him and so many that he's played this season already.
Yep.
I'm with you on that. I can't pick a possible faction for him because he's played GSE, Eldari, Thousand Suns, Demons. It's just like, he's probably going to look at the data slate and go, what's come out the best from it? I'm going to play that. Is probably what his choice is going to be.
Yeah.
And then, I think we got time for one more player.
Yep.
And I'm going to go someone who we've mentioned in the stream. He has been on, I don't think he's been on stream previously, but Gary Morris, I'm going to pick on. Gary is 26th in the South Pacific rankings, sitting on 890 points. However, he's been playing Votann the majority of the season.
Even when they were bad. He is one of the diehards. I will be amazed if Gary doesn't put down some big results after the changes that we've seen.
Yes.
Because not only does he have that power coming into it, the change to judgment tokens, he has experience and expertise that is so hard for meta chasers to pick up.
Yep.
Yeah. And on top of that, Gary is actually just a genuinely nice guy to interact with, which is always a plus.
He is a lovely gentleman. So, he's put up some good results from what we've seen. Of course, some of these were in 9th. He came 15th at the Down Under 40K Major earlier in the year. He's got a couple of solid RTT coming first at one, Game Center Narellan, coming second at a Good Games Maitland. TNAO, he did place 46th, so in the top 50%. There with Votan, so quite possibly that experience is going to help him with the Votan changes. He is going to be someone to watch out for at Pantheon GT.
Yep, 100%. One more that I'll go through that'll be real quick. I actually want to point out Feud, as he's one of the few people I know that was playing Chaos Space Marines and doing very, very well with it. And I'm interested to see whether Feud will play that again. You don't have to give up anything, Feud, but Feud wanted the leadership of TNS and a really, really great person to practice against or play against.
Yep.
I'm keen to see he will be somebody that when list uploads happen, he will be one of the first that I click to see what he goes on.
100%. He is currently 53rd in the South Pacific for ITC, sitting on 748 points. So and playing really
CSM, which have kind of been a middle of the road faction, that's actually not a bad sort of thing to get when you've been sort of riding that. So yeah, really, really good.
100%.
But having said that, that is not all of the players that we're excited for. Maybe in a future stream we can talk about some others, because New South Wales is fostering some really, really amazing talent. We have such an amazing circuit. So,
100% agree.
Yeah.
So I think that is going to come to a close for today's version of Tournament Preview. As you said, we're probably going to do maybe 1 or 2 more of these in the future as well. But Jay, have you got any shout outs that you'd like to throw out?
Well, the first one will be to Art of War, who are sponsoring the event from all the way over the pond. They have thrown in a mind-boggling amount of support to the event. I haven't done the official thing. I'm filming a little bit of what will be probably a bit too much of a funny video about what they're doing. I actually will have to clear it with them because my sense of humor might not line up with theirs. But they have just been incredible. And like, it has been like no strings attached. Just get this stuff out to your players. We get our name out. They have just been so fantastic. Alex Englazos has made that happen. And he has been instrumental to it. Really big thanks to all of the New South Wales people that have been chiming in and helping out and offering up support. And Irresistible Force, who's been sponsoring my channel. All that stuff that's over right there, that is the first set of prize support that they sent to me just off their own bat. They are incredible. And you'll see a Leviathan box. You'll see a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm very passionate about LGSs. Even if it's not my sponsor, get down to your local gaming store. They have spaces for you. They run tables. They run events. They are incredible. LGSs are the people that we should be standing behind.
100%.
Yeah, so find your LGS and get in there.
100%. I'm a massive proponent as well for paying where you play. Because if your local store isn't there and you're not helping them continue running, they might not be there in a year's time.
Yeah, and going in there and buying a Coke Zero every now and again doesn't keep doors open. It doesn't cover overheads. No. For the sake of a couple of dollars, we keep places open that run events and look after us and create havens for people that want to come in and be safe while they're enjoying their hobby. So
100%.
Speak with your wallets, guys. Like,
100% agree. 100%
but
agree.
Yeah, mate, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. I don't know if I've smiled this much all week.
It's been great to have you on, Jay, and great to talk about the Pantheon GT. I'm sure, we'll probably cover missions in the next one and talk a couple more players and stuff as we get a bit closer. Obviously, we've got the Marines and the Tyranny Codex coming out before the event, so that'll be important talking points too. But yeah, I want to thank everyone in both communities that has joined the stream or hung out. Thank
you, everybody.
Yeah, if you've come in halfway through or, you haven't been able to catch the full stream, these will be on both our YouTube channels. On the Pantheon Studios channel, it'll be up pretty much straight away as it's being streamed on YouTube. On the ATWN, it'll be up next week. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone for joining us. We will be covering, as Jay has said at the start, we will be streaming the Pantheon GT from the venue on October 7th and 8th. Up in Padstow. It's going to be an awesome event to cover. I'm really excited to be up there once again covering it. But Jay, thank you so much for your time.
Scotty, thank you so much for having me. I am looking forward to it. Maybe I'll even try and rope you into a skit, see how your comedy stuff goes.
We can see how we go.
But thank you, everybody. This has been amazing. Looking forward to the next stream. Make sure you show Scotty some love. Make sure you follow, give him some subs. It is not easy to be following all these events around and putting stuff down. Scotty doesn't know I'm saying this, so, Scotty, just shh for a little bit. Show him some love. Help support him out. Every single dollar that you put towards it means that we get more competitive Australian 40K into people's eyeballs. So get it in your eyeballs. Speak with your wallets again. He's amazing. Support him. All right, mate. That's it from me.
And that's it from me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Catch you, everybody.